If you've been in the waiting room for a while, thanks for waiting. And I'm just going to hand it over to Yazmin to get us started and kind of go over what we're going to do today.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in this afternoon. The first things that I would like to do is we're going to have a poll that I would like for you. I don't know if you guys can see it. And I would like for you guys to go through those questions very quickly. And if you please answer them, please let me know in the chat if you guys can see it.
Do you have to click run poll?
I did.
Okay, I don't see it.
I think I did.
Maybe they do.
Can you see it?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Can you guys see it?
I see it.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah, it's coming. People are responding.
And just so everybody knows, there is a link to the slides that I've put into the chat box, which is, if you don't know how to use Zoom, there's a way to click on the chat button, which should be toward the bottom of your screen or to the left of your screen. And then the chat will open up and you can see that there are some things posted there and you have links.
And also at the end, we're going to share a link. If you could please complete those, I think it's five questions is our evaluation. And we really need that from you guys. And it would be greatly appreciated if you guys can do that for us.
Okay, let me put it in again and see if it'll show now. Okay, maybe it didn't show until you came into the room.
Yeah, it's all the way out to at the top. I can see it. I don't know. Got it. Okay, perfect. And there, we have someone from Pinellas, and we don't have Pinellas in the poll.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we will count you, Marisa. Our apologies for it.
Okay, so if we show the results of the poll, then we can kind of move on from that.
Perfect. And I'm going to share. And this is what we have. Are you currently registered in CARD? We have 30% is yes, 50% is no. I want, but I don't know how. You can give us a call. I can share my phone number, and we will be more than happy to register you on for our services.
Mm-hmm. And the CARD phone number is actually in the slides that we're going to see shortly. So you'll have all that information to contact us.
There you go. Perfect. And what is the age of your loved one with autism? We have 7 to 13, 20%, 14 to 19. So we have a lot of teenagers and young adults, 20 to 30 and over 30. And a lot of them are from Hillsboro, Charlotte, Glade, Hardy, Highlands, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Sarasota. On a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the least difficult, 5 the most difficult, how difficult has it been for your loved one with ASD to cope with the changes of the health crisis? 10% not difficult at all, 30% a little difficult, 60% moderately, 10% very, very difficult, and no one extremely difficult.
Okay, so Thank you, everybody, for participating in that.
Very interesting data. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Did you also were able to see the results?
Nope, that's okay.
No? Okay. Oh. Okay, that I thought that it was sharing. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start my sharing my screen. And I want this, and I'm gonna go ahead and share. And I want to go here. I'm gonna go here. Perfect. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about trying to find the calm in the age of coronavirus. This is pandemic. It's something new that I think most of us, or pretty much all of us, is our first time going through a pandemic. And honestly, we are all kind of trying to figure out and going in trial and errors. And let's see how we can go through this, because none of us have experience from previous pandemics. So we are kind of all of us on the same boat, and our goal is trying to provide you with strategies and support. And also you guys, if you have any ideas, please be more than welcome to share them as well, and try to build that support among all of us in regards to how can we help and assist and provide the support to our children and adults with autism in this moment of so many changes that are going on. And it is stressful for them as well as it is stressful for us, because it's very uncertain. Usually when we don't know what's going to happen, we get anxious, we get stressed because we don't know. And that's part of human being, of human nature. We tend to be kind of resistant to change and to the unknown, because we feel unsafe and we feel insecure because we don't have control of what's going to happen. So our objective for today is going to be understanding the underlying symptoms of ASD and how they relate to anxiety. Try to recognize what families may experience and the need during the pandemic. Examine the stress response to the disruption in routine, and explore supports to reduce stress, develop ways to apply them. So that is going to be our objectives and our goals for today. Okay, well, okay. Autism is not only one thing. We have this thing on top of me that I can say, okay. But we have the social communication that we all know is one of the characteristics that people with autism struggle. Not all of them, but many of them struggle with social communication, awareness, also express of emotion. Is very hard for them try to express how they feel inside, put it into words. They feel it, but the connection between what is inside of me and being able to verbalize it, that usually is not there. We have speech and language, and attention and focus is another area that people with ASD struggle. Many of people with autism have ADHD as well. Most of the time it comes like together. Impulses, that's another one. Sensory experiences, that's another one. They can be either hypersensitive or hyposensitive to different, depends on, you know, their senses. It doesn't have to be either or. It's usually the person has both. One sense, it can be hyper and the other can be hypo. So, and the pattern of repetitive behaviors, that's another one. Intense interest is, many of you probably know by now, people with autism have this specific interest into whatever area they identified as important for them. You know, like I have had adults actually that their interest is cars, for example, and they are very good at it, you know, but everything is related to the cars, right? Um, Desire for order, and that also actually creates a lot of anxiety in the regular lifestyle that they can have. Everything has a specific order at a specific place and a specific routine that they go to, a specific schedule, and when things are not within that schedule, that routine, that creates anxiety for them because they don't feel that they are in control of whatever is going on in their environment. And that's something that definitely is happening right now. We also have in here growing up with bullying and social unease. We have people that, kids, teenagers, adults as well, that have been bullied in the past, which is very, very, very sad, but that also happens. Feelings of difference, sometimes worthlessness, hopelessness, and despair. And that has to do a lot. I mean, I had the opportunity this week to teach our TLA students about self-esteem and the importance of building self-esteem. However, when you are being bullied and told that you are good, you're weird, you're worthless, you are whatever they tell these kids, it's kind of hard. And when you're trying to succeed academically, succeed socially, and you see that it's kind of hard, that you're working very hard for an A, but you're getting a D. You know, it's very hard to build that self-esteem, because we build our self-esteem based on, what happens on our outside. No, it's like, oh, I'm so good at that, I'm getting good feedback, so everybody's telling me that I'm good at it. So they start building these feelings of indifference and worthlessness. We have frustration, isolation, rejection. That's another one. Frustration, I can see it a lot. My daughter has autism. She's 10, and the frustration is one of the things that she displays quite often. Her tolerance to frustration is like this, very, very small. But also the isolation and the rejection because of the difficulty to connect socially. We have kids on ASD that also go through trauma, restraint, seclusion, separations. I mean, as well as our neurotypical children, kids with ASD also goes to traumatic events. Actually, the fact of being bullied, that by itself is a traumatic event. So that's another thing that they also experience. When there's a lot of situations that are very uncertain, like what we have right now, that definitely creates anxiety and stress. And not only for them, it creates anxiety and stress for us too. And us as parents, our kids, regardless of what age, it could be, from 3 up to 21. I mean, I have one that is 21. And if we are not trying to be calm, and they feed out of us. So if I'm super stressed and super anxious, and that's exactly, they feed out of us, and that's what they're going to, it builds into their anxiety as well. And other unrealistic expectations based on the splinter skills. So that's another thing. When we have unrealistic expectation of our kids, not to be confused with, I like to challenge my girl, but based on her where she is at now. Okay, like if she's on a, for example, 3rd grade level, but supposedly she's on a 5th grade, she's a 5th grader going to 6th grade, but I know she's not there, so I cannot expect for her to do 5th or 6th grade academic work when she's on 3rd grade academically. So, but in that 3rd grade, I'm going to push you and I'm going to challenge you because I want you to move to 4th grade. So, I mean, I'm not having these unrealistic expectations like, oh, you are a 5th grader, you should be doing 5th grade or 6th grade. No, based on where you are at, I'm going to push you and I'm going to challenge you so you can be better at it. But yeah, when you have unrealistic expectations, definitely. These are co-occurring conditions with ASD. We have OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and this comes with what we talk about, the need for them to have everything in order, everything organized, everything in the same place, and that is important for them. We have the ADHD that we talk about, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We have the depression. Most of the time, anxiety gets into depression. We have kids that are gifted. We have the sensory integration disorder, which is what we're talking about, the sensory difficulties. Sometimes they are hyper or hypo. Like I can provide you an example. My daughter is very hyper with, you know, olfactory sense. Like she can smell things that I can't, and nobody else can, but she can, you know, and to the point that it will create an aversion to whatever she can eat. It's like, I cannot eat that because of the smell. Like I don't smell anything. So that would be hyper. However, she can step on a very hot surface. Like for example, we are at the pool or at the beach and you know, the floor is very, very hot. She won't feel that, you know, at all. So that would be hypo. So it can have both. So that's the sensory disorder. Learning disabilities, you know, that's another one. Like my daughter, she has also learning disabilities in different areas. Eating disorder, as I was explaining, aversion to food, like what we call very picky eaters, you know, they only eat either crunchy or soft, or, and that has to do with the sensory part of it, or like eating disorders, like turning into eating because of anxiety, and go into obesity or stop eating, you know, so that could be also. ODD, that, you know, some of the children display these disruptive behaviors, and some of them are diagnosed with ODD and auditory processing disorder that can also be included. So these are conditions that not all the kids and adults with autism has all of them, you know, but many individuals with autism will have at least one or two of these conditions as well, I would say. I still haven't met one that only has autism and that's it. You know, usually has something else. We have the most common occurring challenges. We have anxiety is prevalent in 40 to 60% of individuals diagnosed with autism. And one of the reasons for that is, like I was explaining before, the importance for them to have control over what they're doing, to have everything organized, to follow the routine, difficulties adapting to changes. And we know that, I mean, we try to keep the environment as a structure and consistent as possible, but life is life, and something that we can have for certain is that life changes and very unexpectedly, and that's how it goes, you know. So that's one of the reasons that most of people with anxiety, I mean with ASD, has anxiety. Also the depression and other mood disorders. Something that I explain is that we have individuals that are nonverbal. Not because a person is nonverbal does not mean that the person doesn't know what's happening around them. You know, they are, most of the time, they're very well aware of what's going around them. And it is very frustrated for them. Like, I know what's happening. I know what I want, but I can't. It's like they are in a prison, like they are hold inside themselves, and they cannot come outside. And that definitely is very, very frustrated, and it definitely will create depression and mood disorders. Because just imagine that you want to express yourself, you want to let people know what your needs are, what your feelings are, and you cannot. And then you have the whole world trying to figure out for yourself and giving you things that they understand is what you want, but in reality that's not what you really want. So research suggests that depression is almost universal in teenage girls diagnosed with ASD. That is very, very concerning and very, very sad. The fact that many girls diagnosed with ASD, they are also with depression and going through depression. That is also why it's very important that even when they're little, kids with autism, I know they start displaying behavioral situations, and ABA is fantastic for the behavioral part of it, but I also encourage my parents to seek the ABA, but also seek mental health, you know, because it is important not only for the child and the teenager to understand what's going on, but also for the parents to learn how can we better assist, how can we better support, how can I build, if we can put it like that, assist my child in building this self-esteem. And that is constantly a constant work. And I can tell you as a mother, that is an everyday challenge. We have ADHD and the OCD that we already talked about, and the ODD. And we have a quote from Dr. Tony Atwood, and he stated that autism is anxiety looking for a target. Autism and anxiety go hand in hand. Autism affects a person's ability to communicate with others or to perceive and understand the world around him, and that's bound to cause anxiety. So just think about that. When your ability to communicate with others, it gets affected by the condition that you have, like I was explaining before. Not because you cannot communicate doesn't mean that you don't understand what's going on, and it's highly frustrating, and that definitely creates anxiety. Not only for those that have ASD, I'm pretty sure like if something like that happens to me, like I cannot communicate, but I understand what's going on, it definitely will create anxiety. So, but the idea is to teach these children and young adults the skills and the strategies for them to be able to reduce the anxiety, and teach them how can you communicate, how can you connect with the world, and you teach the world how they can connect with you. So give them that empowerment, and that's the goal. What causes anxiety for people with ASD? We have the surprises. We have also sensory issues. We have changes from normal routines or expectations. We have social embarrassment, uncertainty, and having to work in groups. So definitely they don't cope very well with the surprises, sensory issues. It is important as they keep growing, make them that they can recognize what are the things that are hard for you in terms of your senses, that which ones are you hyper, which ones are you hypo, and let them know how you, and teach them, okay, once you are able to identify it, how we're going to be able to cope with it. And I cannot address how important it is, again, the therapy. physical therapy, occupational therapy, mental health, ABA therapy, all that, especially when they're little. The more therapy they get, the better, because that's how they're going to learn about themselves. They're going to learn to identify all that, and they're going to learn how to cope with it, and they're going to learn how to teach us how to help them better. So changes from the normal routine or expectations, that's also something difficult for them. Social embarrassment, what the time that we're having now that is totally uncertain, and having to work in groups, of course, because when you're working in groups, especially in a school, it's very hard for them because that's the social component of it, okay? And making mistakes because they have these high expectations. They tend to be very perfectionist, and everything has to happen exactly the way they think it should happen and the way it should go. And when that doesn't happen, you know, that would be a mistake, and the frustration just happens. Unfamiliar situations, unstructured time, definitely they do not do good with unstructured time. Everything has to be structured, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and the importance of unstructured time. Too much stimulation, I think we know that overstimulation is become overwhelming for them, definitely. Too many demands. I mean, the fact that sometimes as parents we go like, okay, you need to brush your teeth, brush your hair, pick up your clothes, clean your room, or whatever it is, you know, it's not gonna work. For too many reasons, not only because of the autism part of it, but also because most of them have ADHD, and children and adults with ADHD, it has to be one thing at a time. You cannot give them a lot because they didn't get it. I mean, probably they got the first word and the rest is out the window. Rushing is very important. You know, with the schedule, and let them know in advance, we're gonna do this, and teach them about the transitions. Being called on for verbal answers, like out of the sudden when, you know, if they're in a school, just to let them know, oh, you know, Jose, what do you think about? It's not going to work very well. And academic pressures. So how does anxiety manifest as? Well, anxiety manifests as irrational fears. So out of the sudden they are scared about things that, I don't know, the dark, or a sound, I don't know, things that doesn't make any sense. Challenging behavior, especially we're going to see that a lot in little ones and teenagers. You know why? Again, they can sometimes, it's very hard for them to communicate. I feel scared, I feel frustrated, I feel, so how are they going to express those feelings? Through their behaviors. And that's when you're going to see a lot of disruptive and challenging behaviors at home. Out of the blue moon, you can see, I don't know, toys flying all the way through the living room. Yeah. You know, and what's going on? Where did this come from? You know, not even 30 seconds ago, everything was perfectly fine, you know? So crying, and like, what are you crying about? You know? And you can ask them, and most likely they cannot express why, or they don't know. Hyperactivity, and it's like jumping off the walls, and it's like, oh my gosh, this like the Energizer bunny, it won't stop. Lack of sleep, it cannot go to sleep, or barely sleep anything, you know, or overtired, it can go the other way around as well. We talk about being perfectionist, defensiveness, you know, increased self-stimulation, sensory seeking behavior. That's another thing that you can, I mean, the kids or adults with stress can respond to. You know, they're trying to, you can see them that is pacing more on the hallway. Let's say like that increased, trying to get that stimulation. Or out of the blue moon, like my little one, she likes to have stuffed animals and blankets, anything that is soft is very hard, is good for her, and that keep her calm. So out of the blue moon, we have all her stuffed animals on the bed, you know? or maladaptive demand refusal. So when we have in co-occurring conditions, the higher the anxiety, it reduces the working memory. And that is not only for those who has ASD, but also I would say for us as well. Like when we are in a very a stressful situation, you think about being in a very stressful situation, let's say at work or at home, or like you are up to here in terms of your stress, you most likely can, and if you haven't, try to think that or try to be more aware of it, and you see how your working memory goes down, you know, because we are on the go and being reactive, you know, and then we are not thinking, we are just reacting to it because that's the mode that we are at. Lee, let me know when it's your turn, because I can see which slides is coming next. I can hear you.
You're doing fantastic. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Coping with anxiety and ASD. The first rule, take care of yourself. And we're talking about us, the adults, the parents, the caregivers, not about the kid or the teenager or the adult, the young adult with ASD. We're talking about us. We need to take care of ourselves. I need to take care of ourselves. First of all, because that's my responsibility. Second of all, because I cannot give what I do not have. As I was explaining before, my kids, from my 10-year-old who has autism to the 21-year-old who is living out of the house, but in this pandemic that we have now, he still calls me for reassurance, like, Mom, you know, and if I am so stressed and I don't take care of myself, that's exactly what I'm going to provide. I'm going to give that. And that's going to display on behaviors. Then my little one is going to get more stressed out and display more hyper behaviors and challenging behaviors, which will cause me more stress. So it's like a circle, no? Like a cycle. And we have to break with that cycle. So very important. And honestly, I know with this schedule that we have now, it's very hard, it's very difficult, but I think we can take 2 minutes. That's all. 2 minutes a day. And it's having the commitment with yourself to get, these are 2 minutes for myself. Just pretend that you need to use the bathroom and lock yourself in the bathroom for 2 minutes. Maybe that works. And on those 2 minutes, you can write something about what I was grateful for today, what was positive about today. You know, maybe it was the beautiful days that we're having outside, you know, and the beautiful weather, the sun, the sky, I don't know, the breeze, the food that you cook, and it was excellent today. You did a great job today, you know, and try to go very into details about it. 2 minutes to write about what are you grateful for that day, or just 2 minutes to take deep breath. You set the timer with your phone and you just take 2 minutes for you to take deep breathing, and that really, really, really helps. Establish a new normal by trying to maintain daily routines and creating a schedule. Create a schedule for your kids and your adults and for yourself, you know. Try to be flexible, as well as, like, in your schedule you have first is brushing teeth and then changing pajamas and then breakfast, but your child wants to eat breakfast first. Well, it's not the end of the world, so we're going to pick the battles. Okay, well, let's eat breakfast the first, and then which one do you want to do? You want to brush your teeth or change your pajamas? Oh, I want to brush my teeth after. Okay, perfect. So you give them options, and also that helps with give them a sense of control within the schedule. It's not like, oh, what do you want to do now? No. I'm giving you the choices, and within these choices, which one do you want? Okay. And use social studies to explain what is going on. And we have posted social studies stories in our Facebook page and card. But also if you need, excuse me, some ideas, please let us know, and we will be more than happy to share with you some examples. And actually, what is the beauty of that? Not only share those stories, create your own with your own kids, you know, make it like a family activity. And again, giving them that sense of control, you know, oh, we're gonna create it. So which pictures do you want to express whatever, stress or fear, whatever, you know, that give them a sense of control as well. And then you can read it or let him read it to you, you know. Okay, this is an example of a daily schedule. Um, you know, before 9 o'clock, wake up, make your bed, eat breakfast, outdoor time, academic time. If I don't know how is the outdoor for you guys where you live at. I mean, in here is pretty possible for me to go outside and walk. But also there is physical activity for the kids and for you guys is very important. And there's this YouTuber, I think he's from England, and he's doing PE. He has a YouTube channel, and there are kids joining from all over the world, Japan, Russia, United States, I mean, you name it, they're joining in, and he's very, very good. My daughter is doing it. At least I make her do at least 10-15 minutes out of it, and it's very, very good. Make your schedules visual, and these are, you know, examples of some visuals that you guys can have. And once again, if you need help with this, or if you need some ideas, let us know, and we are more than happy to help you in creating and giving you ideas on how to create the visuals. And these are other after school schedule. These are other visuals. This one is for a middle schooler that I created. And he actually participated in creating it. He is the one who told me, this is the way I want it to be. This is the way I want it to look like. And I just put it in on paper. Whatever he said, I just put it on paper. And then it got laminated so he can make a check mark whenever that activity is completed, you know? And this is for a girl, the same thing. She put a check mark whenever it is completed. So these are just examples of visuals that you can work on with your kid. And again, make them participate. And there's no one better to tell you what they need and how they want it to be than their own child. You know, they should be part of creating their own schedule and activities. Okay. And Lee, this is now your part.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Yes, share. And you're the host now, okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So just give me a second and we'll get that up. All right. Can everybody see the communication screen? I'm hoping the communication board is visible. So have you ever gotten so upset that you lost your ability to actually like make sense when you're talking? I do sometimes. I completely lose words, and people with autism do this as well when they get upset. Like we saw the anxiety going up and the ability to think and function mentally going down. So this is something that can help a person who has difficulty with communication to begin with, especially when they're in a crisis situation. So giving this board to somebody who has that problem, if they know how to point, they can show you what's wrong. They can explain to you by words and pictures what's wrong. So that can be very helpful.
Hi, Lee. This is Morgan. We actually can't see your communication board. If maybe you can try sharing it.
Yeah, it's not sharing your screen.
Oh, okay. Let me go back then and unshare. Let's see what happened. Let's try this one.
Now.
And from the slide. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Yes. Now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So thanks, Morgan, for the shout. So that's the communication board. These are available through CARD, or, you know, there are some online that are similar that are helpful for people with autism. Social stories. Social stories are a wonderful way to convey information about a situation that's going to happen before a person ever actually gets into that situation. So it's a way to tell them what's to be expected in that situation, whether they are going to, can you see it moving at all? I'm not sure if you see it playing. Is it changing pictures? I don't know if anybody can tell me whether or not they see it moving from one page to another.
It is. Yep, it's moving.
It's moving? Okay, perfect. So I've got so many windows open right now. So right now there's a number of coronavirus stories out there on the internet, and at the end of our presentation we're going to give you a link to that so that you have a variety, and they range from whether the person is just learning about what coronavirus is and how to keep their hands clean or avoid touching their face, or whether they have coronavirus and what they need to do to protect other people from getting it and spreading it to more and more people. So there are a variety of different applications of social stories. Social stories provide a sense of structure to a new experience, and so that reduces anxiety as well. It doesn't just have to be about coronavirus, it can be about anything. It could be about the first day of school, or what we do at the prom, or any of the other kinds of activities that could be happening in daily life. So later on, we're going to do a training or a little brief tutorial on how to make your own, which would be coming up soon. So keep looking at our Facebook page and our posts to find out when that will be. So research is showing that yoga, meditation, and exercise are key factors in mental health, and especially with anxiety. Practicing these skills helps people to achieve a sense of calm, and it uses different parts of the brain than the part of the brain that is running on anxiety. So it actually balances the brain in some way to kind of calm the body down. When we're too much in our head, thinking about the future or worrying about what might happen or having those what if this happens question, doing something physical, doing something where you're focused on a repetitive motion or repetitive breathing, even coloring is a repetitive motion. Doing something like that actually helps to disengage that part of the brain that is running on adrenaline and cortisol. So it's kind of like creating that balance. So we really recommend that anytime you can do some of this in your daily routine, it will help to reduce the anxieties. Make it a fun activity. You and your children could learn how to juggle. That's a repetitive activity. You could learn how to do Tai Chi. There are a lot of videos and apps and things out there these days for children to learn to do meditation. And I need those children's apps because I don't do it very well. But the thing is, you don't have to do it well. You don't have to be an expert at it. It's a part of a process that's a practice that goes on throughout your life. So it's something that we can all benefit from, whether we're children or not. Yazmin, I think you were going to talk about following directions.
Yeah, you click so you can. With following directions, as I was explaining, most of the kids and adults with autism, they also have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it's easier, and instead of providing the directions verbally, if we can write it down, but if you're going to write it down, it has to be very clear. Like, you cannot make a paragraph out of one instruction. For example, if you want them to, instead of clean up your room, you know, what do you mean by cleaning up your room? Either if he already knows what it means because you already show him or her what it means to have the room clean, and he has a picture in his mind or a visual, like actually a picture, you know, that you took, and they, you know, is in somewhere in his room that he can see. perfect. You can put clean up your room because you already know what the expectations are. But if not, then it will be pick the clothes from the floor, put your shoes in your closet, you know, whatever it is. So very specific instructions, and write them down. Have direction in a smaller personal form for your child to refer to, which is what we were talking about. Have those instructions or directions small and very specific. Have visuals. That's something that we were talking about as well. You can have a picture of what it means to, you know, the room clean, what it means to brush your hair, you know, what it means to dress up properly, or whatever it is. Like, and you can take pictures of your own child, you know, and so he can identify, or just find pictures online, and you know, whatever the child is understand is better, or desires. Also, it is important that you know your child. So maybe there's no need for you to ask, because you know, and you have a good connection with your child, and you know him or you know her, and you know, oh, like my daughter loves, I don't know, unicorns. So I know that unicorns will be her thing, you know, and I can do things with unicorns, and that will turn to work perfectly fine. Signal when you are going to give important directions. Like, for example, think of novel ways to signal your child, like use lights, silly hats, funny accents, something flashy, something that will catch your child's attention, and that he already connect with. Oh, when my mom or my dad is doing this, or my caregiver is doing this, it's because this is something important that I really need to pay attention. Usually things that are visual, like lights, things that are flashy, something that is very bright colors, you know, that catch your attention, because your brain is the one who's going to be, you know, that kind of awakens your brain, you know, and it connects, that your brain get connected with that stimulation. And then, you know, and he already knows, or your child already knows, oh, this is important, I better, you know, pay attention. Another thing that I also do is that once you provide an instruction once at a time, ask the child, so explain to me, what do we need to do now? Oh, I need to do this and this, and oh, okay, perfect. Just want to make sure, just go ahead, you know? So you know that he understood, and you know that he paid attention to you, because sometimes they're nodding and the mind is, why there's so many stars out there in the universe, but it's so bright now. Is it going to get dark later today? And all of these, you know, ideas are going in their brain that are not even connected one with another one as you're talking to them, and they're but the brain is woohoo somewhere else. Okay, so always ask them, so what do we need to do now? Explain to me what I just said. Okay.
Thank you. So as far as the next slide, when there's time for a break, we mentioned before that children don't do very well with unstructured time in general. So if they're given a break, maybe thinking about what they can do during the break to give them some structure to the break time. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe they can pick from a jar of pre-written out things to do for break time that you approve of, where, you know, at least they have some choices, and it's not just something that they're new to. They don't know what to do in that transition time. So give them a thing to do during transitions that will help to kind of keep the flow of the structure of the day. And remember that fear, anger, sadness, joy, disgust, and loneliness, they're all normal. They're all human emotions. So, and they're appropriate in certain contexts. So we want to think about when a person is expressing their emotion, try to validate it. Even if it's not what you would feel in that situation, just acknowledge that, yeah, that's how you're feeling right now. Let them know that you notice it and accept that that's what they're feeling right now, because everybody's experience about things is different. What we do with the emotion is the important thing as well. So if a person has acted really negatively, maybe challenging behaviors, and you know that they were angry, you can tell them, listen, I know you were really, really angry when that happened. And I get that.
That
What I
is,
want to see you do in the future is act this or do this thing instead of smashing the plates, you know, or instead of doing something destructive. Here are the things that you can do to help you feel better. And we're going to go over some of those tools a little bit later in this, but just let them know that, you know, the emotion is okay. It's what they do with the emotion.
correct.
And normalizing anxiety at this time is important because, hey, look, let's face it, this is an anxiety provoking situation. You know, kids, they're worried about it. They're worried about coronavirus. They're worried about possibly dying. They're worried about you dying. So it's important to validate their concerns and say, that's a scary thought, isn't it? And we're all very concerned about that. Using the word concern rather than worry is probably a good idea. Afraid maybe is a good word, but, you know, concern puts a person in a point of observation of the situation. It's important to give them helpful information about what to do in that situation and not amplify their worry or concern by giving them scary thoughts or scary information, which is why I think it's important to not let little kids watch the news with us necessarily. It's too much information and it's too confusing to process. And a lot of times they're sensationalizing things, or they have interviews with people who are really, really struggling, and it does not help for a young person to be absorbing that information at that raw level. So it's better if we can observe that ourselves and then give them what's important from it instead of letting them just absorb it all themselves through the TV or through whatever means. Filter it and tell them what they need to do to stay safe, right? So people want to feel like they can do something, otherwise we feel really helpless. So tell them what they can do. They can be a hand washing superhero, right? They can be a germ fighting superhero by staying a foot or 10 feet away from other people. They can be, you know, a hand washing super aficionado, you know, teach them what aficionado means and tell them, you know, you're the one who knows how to wash their hands the best and you wash them for the most time. And, you know, kind of keeping them in the loop of doing something about this for themselves so they feel that sense of control, because everything feels out of control right now, right? So it helps to let them know what they can do to help the situation. Remember that everything in this world is temporary. So even the situation, as bad as it feels right now, it's temporary, and remind them of that. Remind them that things will change and this will be different in the summertime and it will be different a year from now. So give them that hope of the future and let them know that it is going to change. And connect with them when they are feeling upset and they don't know how to express themselves. Help them to express themselves. If they can't verbalize how they're feeling about it, help them get some paper and pencil or pens and colors and markers. Help them draw what's happening for themselves, or build it out of clay or something like that, or mud or sand or whatever you have on hand. So just give them the tools to express themselves. And remember, we talked about skills. Think about challenging behaviors that some of our children have. And a lot of times it comes from a lack of skill. You know, if they knew what to do in the situation to feel better, they'd do it. But at this point, sometimes they're just really freaked out and they need to learn some skills. So these are ways to kind of model the strategies for them so that they can practice the skills. And it's probably a good idea to do that when they're at a calm place, not when they're in that heightened area of you know, anxiety. You want to catch them when they're calm and say, hey, let's practice doing this breathing meditation, or let's practice stretching and doing some yoga moves so that when we feel tight and upset, then we can stretch our bodies out and get them really stretched out and long. And we can stretch our breath out really long. Let's do a contest to see who can breathe the slowest right now. And, you know, practice doing that. I hear that our Facebook Live has frozen, and I'm not sure how to fix that because my screen is only showing me a few things right now, and I don't seem to have that capacity to click on Facebook Live. I apologize to everybody. But yeah, so online there are some really cool breathing strategies and modeling things that you can watch that are digital, and you can follow them. So it kind of paces you in the process of learning a new skill about how to do the circular breathing or the square breathing. Another thing that we talk about a lot in our trainings is the incredible 5-point scale. This is another way to teach the skill of finding calm, is a 5-point scale that ranges from 1 being the most calm and relaxed to 5 being the most upset and disturbed. And so if you help your loved one fill out the columns with the information on it and what it looks like, what it feels like, and what you can do in that situation in order to reduce the anxiety and bring yourself back down, that could be a kind of way to develop a way to communicate about emotions and a way to communicate about anxiety of like, oh, Jesse, you look like you're about at a 4 right now. What's happening? Can you show me what's going on, or can you explain what's happening? How can we bring it back down to a 3 or a 2? Let's look at, you know, what we've come up with in your plan and on your chart. You see, you know, maybe it was slowing down, maybe closing your eyes, you know, kind of use that as a skill developer. And this is the anxiety curve. It shows the stages that occur when a person is reaching a heightened anxiety level. I don't know if you can see, it's very tiny print, but there's a very large curve, right? It starts at 1 where you're totally calm. You get up to a 2 where you're starting to show signs of stress. Then you're at a 3 where you're starting to have a need to leave the situation, but if you can't leave, it escalates up to a 4 and then to a 5 where you're at peak anxiety. Okay. What you were wanting to look at, sorry about that, what you were wanting to look at is that lower curve, that one that is yellow on the bottom. That is your curve. You're the adult in the situation, right? You're not the person to be going into that anxiety curve with your loved one. You want to sort of stay a little bit more calm. You can observe them and know that this is going to hit a peak and it is going to come back down again. And then it will be a time when you can stop and relax and regroup. But what we want to do is not try to teach them the skills when they're at a 2, 3, 4, or 5 level. We want to be teaching the skills to them when they're at a 1 level, which is usually right before they get into a crisis or sometime after. So just keep that in mind, that, you know, we want to keep our curve low. We want to flatten that curve of the anxiety too. Cookies. I love cookies, especially these black and white cookies. Do you remember as a child growing up, you know, eating these cookies? I just love them. But children, as they grow up, they tend to have more experiences. You know, the longer they live, the more life experiences they have, and the more time they have to develop ways of thinking about things that are different than just a snap judgment or a snap reaction. However, sometimes children with ASD are kind of all or nothing thinkers. You know, they tend to have a way of thinking and approaching the world that is very fixed. So it's either good or it's bad. You know, it's either fair or it's unfair. There's no real gray area. It's very black and white, like the cookie. But what we want to try to help them do is shift into a more dynamic way of seeing things. Kind of like this yin and yang cookie. It's a little bit of light in the darkness, and there's a little bit of darkness in the light. And that way there's still some movement. There's still some room for adjustment and a gray area. So that's what one of these cognitive behavioral shifts that we're going to talk about, and look at ways to make tiny movements toward that gray area, toward that mixed area. So for instance, in this situation, a person says, I hate writing, right? Hate's a strong word. So if a person hates to do something, what we want to do is try to gray that down a little bit to find out, well, what is it that you really hate? And is there some part about writing that's okay? You know, is it that you hate holding the pencil? Is that okay? Or you don't like it? All right, well, if it's okay, we put it in that okay column. What about drawing? That's kind of like writing. Your pencil's on the paper and it's moving. Yeah, I like that. Okay, great. And then looking at all the different aspects of writing and breaking it down into, I like it, it's okay, or I don't like it. That way, when a person takes a look at the I hate writing thought, they can see they don't really hate writing. There's parts of writing that they don't like, but there's parts of it that are okay. And that way they start to shift. They start to recognize that, no, I don't really hate writing. I can be more flexible in my thinking about writing. It's not my favorite thing, but there are things that I could like about it. Here's an example of relating to home education, right? Sitting and learning at home can be difficult for kids. They're not used to it. You're not their teacher, probably, unless they're already doing home instruction. But, you know, they may be balking at the idea of you sitting down and teaching them math, right? So if they say, I can't do this, I can't learn at home, and they refuse, we want to break it down and give them some options to think about, well, what is it that you can like about it? Is there something about where we sit that could make it better? Is there something about the time of day that we do math or we do writing that would make it better? Do you mind sitting at the kitchen table, or is it just too much traffic there or too many smells and distractions there? And we think about, you know, how to manage the new situation for them environmentally, but also emotionally and intellectually. So we want to help them manage it intellectually by giving them the tools to create a cognitive shift, to create a cognitive change, a thinking change about how they're going to approach that activity. Okay, so now an as-if activity. I think we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'm just going to go quickly through these last couple slides. And I appreciate you hanging on if you're still with us. As-if activities give us the opportunity to practice the skill of relaxing and build up a coping skill, build up that sense of confidence in our ability to shift out of anxiety and into a calmer state. So if you were to imagine yourself on a day where you have no responsibilities to anybody but yourself, on a day where it's the perfect weather, you're in the most comfortable clothing, you're in a place where there's no threat, and you take that deep breath in, and as you relax it and release it, you notice how everything in your body just shifts into a much more organized and soft state. And the muscles in your jaw and your face relax, because you're accessing something that automatically puts you in the state of mind as if you're actually there. The imagination is a wonderful thing. Sometimes people have a hard time imagining things. They need to have prompts or images to build up that imaginary place. They may need scent, smell, or a physical kind of texture or touch to sense that difference in space and time, to imagine it. So what I suggest sometimes is for people to remember a positive activity that they've done, maybe as a family or maybe just by themselves, remembering it really, really well. Maybe even finding old photographs of that, or an old video that was taken of them doing that activity. And then kind of build up that experience by making a show or a slideshow or presentation about it for themselves to share with you or to share together as a family. And maybe bring in the sensory stuff to it. So if it's the beach trip you took back in 2016 and everybody was doing great and happy, show that video, bring out the suntan oil and put it on and smell the coconut smell, or if it was a trip somewhere to the alpine forest, you know, take some pine needles out and smell them and get involved in it. And that way you borrow from that good experience and you bring it up in your life and you act as if that is happening at the moment to kind of reduce that sense of anxiety. And last but not least, we have some tools. Tony Atwood talks about the toolkit for anxiety to help the feeling. We can't fix feelings. Feelings are what they are. We can't stop them from being feelings, but we can kind of modify them a little bit. So with physical tools represented by the hammer are things like walking, running, trampoline jumping, doing a sport, creative things, creative destruction, like taking paper and tearing it. If you're good at recycling paper, take that paper from the recycling bin and tear it up. You know, that's a way to kind of release the stress. Bite into a crisp apple, you know, break a pencil. Nah, maybe don't break a pencil, but you know, idea about squeezing oranges, squeezing fruits to get the juice out. That's another physical activity that could help you. Relaxation tools are things like painting, drawing, sleeping, napping, squeezing a stress ball, getting a massage. Social tools could be things like sharing a problem with somebody, talking to them about, you know, what's on your mind, talking to your pet, petting the pet, you know, spending time with your pets. If you have pets right now, I'm sure they're going through a lot too. They're picking up on all our angst and anxiety, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it. Helping somebody else is another social way of putting yourself out of your own head and your own anxiety and getting out there and doing something for somebody else. That definitely helps with depression as well. Thinking tools are some things that, like we talked about, is finding the gray zone in between our black and white thinking and trying to reorder our statements to ourselves. We could also use a special interest as a thinking tool, like thinking about our favorite thing that we love so much. If it's the blue whale, we think about all the facts and figures about the blue whale. Or if it's some special interest that has to do with motion and activity, maybe it's acting or dancing or gymnastics, you know, we think about that and we think about how we can perfect our somersaults or other things like that. Thinking about personal special interests. And then other tools could be distract packs. I don't know if you're familiar with the distract pack. I'll get you one. So a distract pack, is that backwards? I read it backwards. But a distract pack is a little like toolkit that actually has a lot of sensory items inside of it. So you might have a pair of headphones to put on to kind of cut out some of the noise from the outside world. That's very calming. You might have a couple of different activities or items in there that have motion and interest. You might have a kaleidoscope to look through. That can be something that will help. Medication is another tool. Some people will use medication or herbal essences and oils to kind of help to soothe some of the anxieties. You know, obviously we want to check with doctors and make sure that whatever children are taking or using and whatever we're using is going to be safe for us. So we're not recommending you do one or another. Just make sure you check with your physicians and your pediatricians to make sure that it's going to be okay for your child. And then give us a call. There's another option is too, you know, we're here for technical assistance. We're here for direct assistance to provide you support, to bounce ideas off of, to look up resources and try to connect you with the best people in the community who are recommended by other parents like you. So we're here to kind of offer you that as well and give you an ear if you need to talk. So I'm going to hand it back over to Yazmin and give you the floor again, if you will take the reins, so to speak, and I'll stop sharing the screen.
Can you stop? There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. So I know there's a couple of questions on our Facebook Live, and we will be definitely answering them on Facebook. If you guys have any questions, please, if you can let us know right now before we close. I need to also share with you guys so you guys can feel a little questionnaire for us, that will be very, very, very helpful. And I'm going to share the link right now. And I'm also going to share this on Facebook. Okay, so it will take less than a minute to, you know, to complete that, and it will be very, very helpful for us. Any questions that you might have before we say goodbye? Perfect.
I want to actually share the screens that have the links. I actually shared it at the beginning of this, where it has the slides for our presentation, and it has links to all of those social stories and access to a lot of things on the web. So I will make sure that I share that before we end, so we can have access to it.
We can also share it on Facebook in the CARD-USF webpage.
Okay.
And then they can, because when we close, I don't think they're going to be able to. So.
Okay, it's in a document cloud, so it'll be accessible once, if you copy and paste that, you should be able to get to the slides that have all that information.
Perfect. I'm sorry, they told me that I put the one on Spanish.
Oh, okay.
That's not gonna be helpful. We have two. We have the Spanish one, and we have
was the first one that we sent out in Spanish as well? Because I can resend that one.
I don't know.
I don't know. I can't really see if
Let me see if this is the one, because we have to. If not,
Oh,
I will definitely put it in.
Yeah, I think mine is in English. So.
Oh, okay.
Speaking English or speaking Spanish, we ask you to fill it out.
The first one is in English. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it says 2NG, so I think that's the one. Yeah. So we also gonna put that link in the Facebook page. So you guys, if you don't have the time to do it now, you can do it also on the Facebook page.
Well, thank you everybody for sticking with us and for visiting, and keep us in your minds, because we're going to be posting more videos, more webinars, and I promise you, we're going to get better at it. We're all learning here. We're on the learning curve about how to do this. So as we learn, we're going to get better at it, and it's going to flow and be a little bit more smooth.
Thank you.
I'm sure. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys, and stay safe.
Yes.